Valery Zaluzhny, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, is rumored by the Russian propaganda and info ops to be missing, dead or wounded. That is not true. He recently published a photo of him smiling, being all healthy and in a good mood, but that's not it. He also published this video that we're going to watch today, and it will give you goosebumps, I promise. It is in the light of the upcoming Ukrainian counter-offensive. And if I was a Russian soldier watching this video in Ukraine right now, I would run from Moscow. This video has an old prayer in it written by Osip Maschak almost 100 years ago. It's an old Ukrainian prayer. And the main theme of the modern prayer is bless our determined counter-offensive.
Україно, рідна земля мати, Господь, Отець наш Небесний, благословіть. Благословіть! Я йду знищувати! Ворогів землі рідної! Вбив моїх братів! Гвалтівників моїх посадок! Нехай рука моя буде твердою! Щоб вбивати ворогів! Нехай око моє буде ясним! Щоб вбивати ворогів! Нехай зброя моя буде справною! Щоб вбивати ворогів! Нехай воля моя буде сталь! Щоб вбивати ворогів! Україно! Рідна земля мати! Господь, Отець наш Небесний! Благословіть! Наш рішучий наступ! Нашу священну помсту! Нашу святу перемогу!
Gave me goosebumps. It is an awesome video that shows that Ukraine is on the forefront of war media. Russia is really lacking in that area, and we're gonna watch a few videos today later in this video about the Russian side of these same info ops. And they are so bad, believe me, you're gonna wanna stick to them. It's almost cringe. Let's analyze the Russian losses of the last 24 hours a little bit, because they tell us more than what only happened in the last 24 hours. They tell us what is happening in the grand scale of things right now. 480 Russian KIA. That is a little bit lesser than about a month ago because all of the Bakhmut urban area is now under Russian control and Wagner is pulling out of Bakhmut, which means that offensive operations, assaults are happening less and less. There are some, but not as many as Wagner was doing them. And if there are no offensive operations or assaults or meat-wave tactics, of course the losses go down. I mean, 480 is still a lot. It is almost one battalion tactical group per day. The next big thing that tells us a lot is 22 artillery systems per 24 hours. And I also know why this is happening, because Ukraine has really ramped up their first-person view drones. These are these very fast and agile small drones, not these big civilian Mavic drones that are carrying explosives. I'm talking about those racing drones that have explosives attached to them. According to the latest data, Ukraine is able to produce about 500 of these drones for the military per week. 500 per week. And each of those drones could take out an artillery system if aimed properly. Of course, the negative side about these drones is that training with them takes a lot of time, because you need to fly very fast and you need to maneuver very professionally, so it takes months actually. But the plus side about these drones is they're fast to produce and they're extremely cheap. One drone, the cheapest ones, could cost as low as $300-400, and they're taking out artillery systems with them. They're also so small and so fast you cannot shoot them down and you cannot see them on a radar. And when I was in Ukraine, I was talking to an angel investor who is an owner of a drone company, and they're testing their drones in Ukraine right now. When I say testing, I mean they're flying them to the Russian positions. Testing nowadays don't mean civilian testing. Military drone testing actually means testing them in battle situations. They're doing it now, and they said the fact that it takes so long to train, they can fight against it with their company, because they're building a GPS module and coding into it that, yes, the drone operator flies the drone 90% of the way, but the very last aiming part, when you have to really ram the drone into the target very precisely, that is done by an algorithm. You lock the target on the screen, the drone gets the GPS from the satellite, locks it, and then the targeting, the last 150 meters, will be done by the drone and the satellite, eliminating the human error of the very fast maneuvering. When I heard this news, I was really happy. It is in testing phase right now, but in 2-3 months we might see these drones being rid of human errors. Then they're gonna be even more precise. Because right now, a lot of those drones miss. Next big loss we're gonna see that tells us a lot is UAV losses, 31. And that also ties to the drones, because these first-person drones, racing drones, are not only taking out artillery systems. We have videos actually of those speeding, ramming into other Russian drones. They are faster, they're smaller, and they maneuver better, so they actually are used to take out Russian drones. Munition-dropping drones, attack drones, spy drones, everything. And the last number here I want to analyze is the vehicles and fuel tanks. This also ties to the drones. Don't ask me, everything ties to the first-person view drones. I'm sure you have seen a lot of those videos. When you haven't, Noel Report's Twitter account has a lot of them, where Russian Ural truck, for example, is driving and the first-person view drone straight drives, rams into the window, extremely precise. The drone is moving fast and the truck is moving fast, but the drone operator is so good, he's able to maneuver it precisely into the front window or into the side window, taking out two in the cockpit, taking out the truck. And the cost of this attack, 300 USD. This is a genius weapon that will change the outcome of this war, and it's cheap. It's scalable. We gotta talk about the Russian Volunteer Corps or the Russian Freedom Legion. Video before the last video I mentioned they were in Gozinka in Russia. They wreaked a lot of havoc there and then they pulled out. But now they have striked into Russia again. I'm not kidding you. This was the location of the last strike a few days ago, and now we're talking this location. On the bird's flight it's about 80 kilometers. If you follow the roads, it's about 100 kilometers east from Gozinka border point. They have moved to Vovchansk right here, and then they struck into Russia. On these videos you can hear fighting going on in Maslova Pristan, which is 15 kilometers into Russia. Those Russian volunteers fighting under the armed forces of Ukraine have occupied Maslova Pristan, Bezlyudovka and Novaya Davalzhanka. All three of these settlements. We have videos and reports from those two units that Russians don't have any significant forces in the area that the police is fleeing, and the Russian border is not holding. Anybody can come and go as they please. Russia has gambled that nobody will touch them, nobody will cross that border, but it's an empty gamble because they were so sure of it, they never fortified all of it. And it's a huge border also with Ukraine. You cannot fortify all of it. Now we're getting reports of Russians actually moving their forces out of Donbass and Donetsk to fortify this border right here. Of course, we're not talking about a huge amount of units, we're talking about a few battalion tactical groups, a few thousand men. But that is a big plus, because everything taken out of here will weaken Russian positions in Donetsk, which I think might be the goal of these two units attacking into Russia, to lure the Russian reserves away from Donetsk. Right now, supposedly these units are still in Russia, occupying this area right here. I think what is going to happen, they're going to pull out. These forces are not ready for a long-term occupation, and that's not their goal. Their goal is to get media attention, to lure Russian reserves into battle, and then to pull out and strike from another location. Imagine a huge bear that is very slow, and mosquitoes attacking it all over the place. If the bear reacts on one part, the mosquito strikes from another part. Or let's say honeybees, taking away the bear's attention from other problems that might need attention. For example, the entire southern front where the counteroffensive might happen. Another news, it was really exploding again in the occupied Ukraine and in Russia last night. First of all, in Mariupol, in Azovstal actually, it exploded. There was a huge bang right here, and there is reports of Russian ambulances driving to the location, and a lot of injured, a lot of casualties. I guess Russian army was setting up some kind of a headquarters in the Azovstal. I mean, it's a logical place to do. It's mostly underground, and there's a reason why Ukrainians defended it for so long, because it is easier to defend than any other location. But now Ukraine knew to attack it. Also, like I mentioned in the last video, again this night Berdyansk was hit. I mean, it is exploding almost every night in those big cities now. And I'm so sure you all know what happened with the hospital in Dnipro. It was a true terrorist attack. Ukrainians are paying back right now. These attacks are well coordinated, and if the intelligence is right, these attacks do a lot of damage to the Russian command system. But now we have to go back to Bakhmut. As you can see, the whole of Bakhmut city is under Russian control, but most news actually is not about the battles right here today, but about the exchange of prisoners. On 25th of May, 2 days ago, there was an exchange of prisoners where 106 Ukrainian prisoners were freed. It was south from Kromove, around this area. And you can see all of these videos are from the prison exchange. What's really going on? Even a year ago already, I remember reporting that Ukrainians are not taking prisoners because some special forces of the Ukrainian army made videos that they're not taking prisoners anymore. They're going to shoot everybody on sight because at that time Russia was really attacking civilian infrastructure a lot and doing a lot of damage. Not taking prisoners has never been true in the Ukrainian army because there is such thing as we call the prisoner exchange fund. Every Russian POW they get is an exchange fund for Ukrainians who have fallen into Russian captivity. And these Ukrainians are very much necessary for the armed forces of Ukraine. Officers, people with experience, they can teach other people. So Ukrainians need as much Russian POWs as possible to be able to free their own lads. And this is what happened. I've talked to Ukrainian officers in Ukraine about the Russian POWs, and they say Russian prisoners of war in Ukraine are pretty happy because they're fed properly, they're kept warm, and they can actually work for pay. Some of them can, which is, compared to what the Ukrainians in Russian captivity are feeling, it's heaven. Ukrainians in Russian captivity, when they are released, they're usually taken. They usually have starved, lost a lot of kilos, pounds, a lot of weight, and they have been tortured. Everything the opposite way. So these Russians who are exchanged on these videos, they don't want to go back. This is what I've heard from the Ukrainians, because Putin recently pushed through the laws that giving yourself in as a POW is viewed as treason from the court system. That means if you are released, you will be punished accordingly. Jail time or straight to the front lines again. So Russians don't want to be exchanged, but they will be. Ukrainians, on the other hand, when they get back to their homeland, they are heroes. They get honored, they get medals. And if they want, they can teach other soldiers, or they can go back to fight, or they can go back to their families. The stories are very opposite. 2 of the foreign fighters' bodies were released to the Ukrainians. One of them was American, one of them was Turkish. And here you see Prigozhin actually talking about both of these bodies. Yes, Prigozhin is still in Ukraine with his troops, but the reports that I'm getting is that they are preparing to pull out entirely from the war zone. But time will tell. We cannot make any assumptions yet until it happens. United States Abrams that are designated to be given to Ukraine have arrived in Germany, which means that the Ukrainian tank crews training might begin at any day now. Ukrainians training with the Abrams. That will be the day. I remember a few years ago when I started with military content, reacting to the Abrams tank and its capabilities, and it really fascinated me. That is a beast of a tank. And if I see the first video of Ukrainian troops training with it, I'll be happy. I'll be sharing it with you. My friends, now we will watch 93rd Mechanized Brigade of Ukraine near Bakhmut, driving on one of the roads that is under fire, and it's really Mad Max vibes. It is in... This is new footage of Valuk wheeled armored personnel carrier from Slovenia. Slovenia gave about 20 of those to the Ukrainian army. Another new platform. Ukraine is the country right now that has the most different systems in its armed forces. Small arms, artillery systems, armored personnel carriers. I think it has everything the Western countries have to offer on those fields. And when the war is over, I think they're gonna go to NATO standards. Right now, they of course need everything, but in the long term, it's very difficult to keep 10 different armored personnel carrier platforms in your army, because then you need 10 different mechanics. But as of now, it is true. They need what they can get. Russian info ops are on a new level. We watched Valery Zhaluznay's published video about the Ukrainian prayer. It was really good. I got goosebumps. Now we're gonna watch a Russian video that is... well, I'm not gonna say anything until you see it. Maybe you will bite through it. In this video, we can see a Ukrainian soldier walking into a medical tent to find his friend, and there is a German doctor harvesting his organs, yelling, "Raus! Raus!" I think it's like a Russian fetish to cosplay Ukrainians, perhaps. Okay, what's up? These are not Ukrainians. These are Russians cosplaying Ukrainians, putting on the uniforms and making propaganda videos. And of course, there is a German doctor, because I guess the director of the video. Old fears from World War II emerged again, where the Germans are these evil doctors harvesting organs. But believe me, this is not it. There's another one. In this one, we can see Ukrainians taking a staircase, shooting. There's an active firefight, but for some reason there are sound of weapon shooting, and the weapons are doing the kick, but there's nothing coming out of them. I guess they forgot to add the muzzle flash, or the money from Moscow ran out, because these actors only move the weapons, imitating the kick of the weapon and not shooting nothing, and then they will all get shot for some reason from somewhere that nobody sees. It is pure humor for me. I can't understand. I mean, Moscow has a lot of money, a lot of oil money. You can pay good actors and pay good VFX editors to do real stuff. This is just bad. This is something that I did when I was 12 years old. Took a camera and shot a video with my friends. We had airsoft weapons. That's the level. I love how one of you put it. This took effort. The outfits, the props, the set. Someone actually wrote a script for this. They had rehearsals. They had multiple takes. I can't stop laughing. Ukrainian military agency claims that Russians are preparing a large-scale false flag operation in the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And we have heard announcements like this many times before from the armed forces of Ukraine and intelligence service. But the thing is, if Russians are planning anything, how can you stop them from doing it? You have to publish it before they do it. This is why I think the Ukrainian intelligence services publish it, because they get information Russians are planning something, and if they publish it before, there's no point for Russians to do the false flag because the whole world knows about it before they do it. It never has happened, but the announcements have been there multiple times, so I think these announcements are actually one of the only things stopping the Russians from doing these false flag operations. If the Russians are planning it for tomorrow and they see it, and they say in Ukrainian media it's already been announced that this will happen, there's no point in doing it. So Ukrainian intelligence is really on another level on this. But now we're gonna watch Russian propaganda video, because I read the comments, some of you guys really want to see these clips. And in this clip we hear the truth, which happens sometimes in these shows. And I'm quite confused, but actually if I listen to Vlad Vexler talking about Russian propaganda, this is how it works.
При нынешнем политическом режиме нам не светит вернуться в Европе. Надо просто выбрать другое руководство страны, которое прекратит эту историю с Украиной.
We have to choose different authorities to govern the country. This guy was talking straight against Putin right now. We need somebody different to govern. In Russian propaganda, what the hell?
И выстроить нормальные отношения с европейскими странами. И все встанет на свои места. В следующем году выборы президента. Надо другого кого-нибудь выбрать, а не Путина. Все будет хорошо.
Боюсь, Борис, что вы сейчас как раз...
We need to choose somebody else than Vladimir Putin. In the propaganda show, to millions of Russians watching it. But you know why this doesn't mean anything? Because as Vlad Vexler put it, Russian propaganda is built up to not give you one certain narrative. It is built up to give you as many different narratives. They talk chaotically every time, different blame shifting, every time different narratives that people just don't know what to believe anymore. They turn apathetic and they don't believe anything anymore. So whatever comes out of a single show doesn't have an effect anymore because nobody believes it. And if you don't believe your own show, you don't believe anything. They don't believe the Western also. Russian people are apolitical. They feel apathy about any certain one narrative. And they cannot be manipulated by the Western media because they have been trained not to believe anything. One basic belief is that Putin is God. That hasn't changed.
В другую сторону агитировали. Вас послушают избиратели и сделают ровно противоположное.
Почему?
Ну, потому что...
Послушай, хотите играть с Европой, ну решайте. Хотите играть в хоккей с
Так, нам все заканчивать надо.
С индусами.
Так, все, давайте мы сделаем...
Let's pause here. Yeah, things are getting out of hand for them. Let's pause, of course. Azerbaijan and Armenia are finally signing a peace treaty. Something I thought I would never see in my lifetime. These two countries have been in war. I mean, back in the Soviet time, Soviets have their peacekeepers in there. They have been in war with 50 years plus. This war is on and off. Like somebody's horrible relationship you see from the side and think, why don't they break up? Well, now they're getting back together. The conflict is about Nagorno-Karabakh, which is a disputed region that both countries claim, and they're ready to fight and kill for those regions. But if you look at these photos, I mean, these guys don't want to make up. This is America interfering because Russia was supposed to be the power, the guarantor of peace in this region, and Russian forces are all drawn to Ukraine and their international influence is crumbling, it's going down. China and USA are jumping in, and China is not reaching there yet, so it's no surprise when USA steps in. Suddenly these guys are ready to make up. I'm sure USA offered them something very valuable, an offer they cannot refuse. If this happens, then USA does something that Russia couldn't. if they can prevent another war from happening over Nagorno-Karabakh. And now we will watch Putin being delusional, because I know you guys like to see that.
Будущего, оно на самом деле будущее есть у всех, только оно разное. Вот это ключевой вопрос. И уверен, у России будущее хорошее. Во-первых, потому что мы знаем, чего мы хотим, и знаем.
We know what we want, and we know what means to achieve. Oh my, do they know what they want? I don't think even Putin knows what he wants, because he has come out with speeches throughout this war, 1.5 years of this war, and every time his speeches change, the goal of this war changes, his promises change. I'm not sure he knows what he wants.
Какими средствами мы добиваемся наших целей. Первое. Во-вторых, у нас огромные ресурсы, прежде всего людские ресурсы, человеческие ресурсы. У нас, несмотря на дискуссии в сфере образования и школьного, и высшего, здесь есть над чем работать. У нас устойчивая система образования и тяга к знанию.
We have a sustainable education system and a desire for knowledge. No, I mean, when the mobilization happened, the most intelligent Russians left the country. The IT sector ran empty. Desire for knowledge those Russians have that have left the country. Those who have stayed have no desire for knowledge, because otherwise they couldn't live in such country, because having knowledge means you're not so much affected by the propaganda, and if you're not affected by the propaganda in Russia, you don't want to live in Russia. So I don't think there is a desire for knowledge in Russia.
У российских граждан вот это вот самое главное, которое заложено было, наверное, еще с советских времен, вот это тяга к знаниям и авторитет знания как такового.
Thank God it's preserved. What is preserved? Nothing. Yeah, I said it myself. The guy is living in delusions. I cannot say he's senile. He doesn't look senile, but he's fully delusional. He has no contact with reality. He lives in his silver palaces, no contact with the Russian reality on the ground.
Это очень важно. Это сохраняет слово.
My friends, I have made a surprise for you. In the estoniansoldier.com, you know, my merch webpage, I have put out some surprises for you. I wanted some for myself, and I'm going to put them on for the videos to come. So go and check it out. Get some cool Ukrainian merch for yourself, for your kids, for your grandmother. I'm sure she'll love it. Unfortunately, we don't have any new patrons, so I cannot butcher any names now. I'm sorry. Maybe next video. If you like my channel, you can support my channel on Patreon and tier 10 and above, and I'll be butchering your name. Link is in the description below. Also check out my Instagram, also in the description below, and Twitter, where I post Ukrainian news 3 times a day. And as always, until my next video, my friends, Slava Ukraini.